Prepare to have your reality shaken. Paranormal M is here to immerse you in the enigmatic world of the supernatural. Subscribe now and enable notifications to join us on our quest for the truth behind unexplained phenomena. Story number 1. Am I wrong for using ADHD medication to quiet my gifts and abilities? Throughout my life, I've experienced a constant influx of spiritual entities, both malevolent and non-malevolent. It's a phenomenon that has overwhelmed me time and time again. What's even more peculiar is my uncanny ability to know things about people that I shouldn't know, particularly when I meet them for the first time and make physical contact, like shaking hands or looking into their eyes. I never actively sought out or asked for these gifts or abilities. I suppose I was merely fortunate, or perhaps unfortunate to be born with them. To provide some context, I come from a Native American background, specifically a Comanche and Kiowa descent. My family lineage is often referred to as that of a medicine man. Consequently, from a young age, I was introduced to the practices of spirituality and native medicine. Throughout my life, mentors and elders and my mother have repeatedly told me that I possess exceptionally strong gifts and incredibly powerful abilities. However, I've always approached these claims with skepticism, taking them with a grain of salt. Despite this, there has been countless instances where my mood has triggered the manifestation of poltergeist activities or other psychic phenomenon in my own home or the residences of those who have caused my distress. The prevalence of these occurrences led me to collaborate with researchers from the University of Virginia's Perceptual Studies Department, who studied and documented my gifts and abilities. I use quotes around these terms because I've always struggled to rationalize and accept their reality. The doubts have plagued me throughout my life since they defy rational explanation and seem more fitting for a movie plot rather than a real-life circumstance. However, during my initial assessment intake interview at the University of Virginia, a PhD graduate student assured me that she genuinely believed in my gifts and abilities because I expressed my fear when they manifested. Her validation made a significant difference in helping me finally come to terms with the fact that I possess inexplicable talents. I can access knowledge beyond ordinary means and can communicate with spiritual entities. Despite this affirmation, I still find it difficult to fully embrace these aspects of myself. On numerous occasions, my abilities have unsettled those around me, including myself, especially during intimate relationships. Regrettably, I've not always used these abilities for the greater good of humanity, particularly when individuals intentionally inflicted harm upon me. There was a period in my life when I was primarily focused on seeking revenge against those who I believed had intentionally wronged or hurt me. Furthermore, I've been a magnet for the deceased and spiritual entities for as long as I can remember. Until a few years ago, I was able to manage the influx through meditation and the guidance of my spirit guides. However, approximately 4 years ago, around the time of my beloved grandmother's passing, the spiritual activity became overwhelming and unbearable. I knew my grandmother's time was coming to an end, and I understood that she would move on to another life. Although I recognized that her departure was for the greater good and the natural progression of existence, I couldn't help but feel devastated because I desired her presence to remain with me. After her passing, despite my best efforts, I couldn't silence the spiritual entities or halt the physical phenomena. The intensity grew to the point where it affected my relationship with someone I genuinely loved. She couldn't cope with the constant disturbances anymore. For instance, when I experienced profound sadness or anger, stretch marks would mysteriously appear on her arms. She, too, fell victim to the spiritual entities. I don't blame her for choosing to leave. I love her enough to recognize that her well-being necessitated her departure. As these events reached a climax, I stumbled upon an article discussing how some individuals lose their gifts or abilities while using ADHD or other mental health medications. I also recalled that during high school and college, when I was prescribed Ritalin for my ADHD, my gifts and abilities were relatively manageable. Desperate for respite from the chaos, I visited a doctor and obtained a prescription for Adderall. I didn't disclose the true reason behind my request, but I began taking the medication nonetheless. Although I now grapple with guilt for resorting to medication to subdue and regulate my gifts and abilities, the past 4 years have been significantly more peaceful and tranquil. However, there's an underlying truth that I cannot escape. I know that I'm not fulfilling my purpose and using my gifts and abilities for their intended purpose. Overwhelmed with guilt, I recognize that relying on this medication to suppress the turmoil has started to negatively impact my professional and personal life. It feels as if I've unwittingly brought curses upon myself for the actions I've taken in pursuit of peace and calm. It's almost as if the universe is punishing me unless I realign myself with my true calling, whatever that may be. Sadly, I'm unsure of what that truly entails. Throughout my life, I've been repeatedly told that I'm here to help and heal both individuals in the physical realm and those in the spiritual plane. Nevertheless, I never sought these abilities or responsibilities that come with them. I never asked for any of it, and truthfully, I doubt whether I deserve such a tremendous burden. I am aware that many people would cherish having what some refer to as psychic gifts and abilities. To them, I would caution, be careful what you wish for. Little do they know that they may already possess such abilities, but have yet to uncover them fully. Personally, I despised glimpsing at someone and instantly knowing that their spouse, parent, or significant other was subjecting them to physical abuse. How many times did I embarrass myself by approaching a stranger, reassuring them that they didn't have to remain a victim, urging them to seek help, only to face their bewildered gaze as they questioned how I knew the secrets of their private lives. I loathed witnessing people's impending deaths, undiagnosed illnesses, or disastrous choices concerning major life decisions. It was tormenting to perceive all their fears, doubts, and vulnerabilities. Above all, I detested the relentless battles with malevolent entities and the awkward explanations of poltergeist and psychokinesis phenomenon that ensued wherever I entered a new relationship. Hence, my decision to seek refuge in ADHD medication. I confess that I now bear the weight of guilt for utilizing this medication to maintain a semblance of peace and tranquility over the past few years. Truth be told, I fear my own abilities. I've always been afraid of them too. Consequently, I'm at a loss as to how to proceed from here. I mean, I do know what I should do, but I lack the knowledge of how to accomplish it. Furthermore, I'm keenly aware that time is not on my side. Individuals with these gifts and abilities often take on the issues that plagued the deceased during their lifetime, such as disease and depression. I know there will be someone reading this who has experienced the same struggles and doubts that I'm currently enduring. As is the narrator, I implore you to guide me on this uncertain path. I understand the difficulties you faced in accepting your own gifts and abilities, yet somehow managed to overcome your fears and doubts, embracing the truth and moving forward to aid both the physical and the spiritual realms. Story number 2. I saw the moon disappear. It was a memorable night on August 14th, 2021, etched vividly in my mind forever. The clock struck approximately 11:12 p.m., and my boyfriend and I found ourselves driving home, engulfed by the darkness of the late hour. Little did we know that this ordinary drive would soon lead us to witness an extraordinary event, an inexplicable disappearance of the entire moon. The moon that night was a breathtaking waxing crescent, almost on the cusp of being completely full. However, as we gazed upon its luminous beauty, an astonishing phenomenon unfolded before our eyes. The bottom portion of the moon began to vanish gradually, as though a celestial eclipse was taking place. Filled with a surge of excitement, I pleaded with my boyfriend to pull over, craving the opportunity to closely observe this awe-inspiring occurrence. Even though I was unsure if an eclipse was scheduled for that particular night, mind you. Unable to contain my curiosity, I swiftly took out a pen and paper, noting the precise time and date, August 14th, 2021, at approximately 11:12 p.m. Little did I know that this impulsive act would become a point of amusement for me later, as I chuckled at my own inclination to record the event immediately as it transpired. Driven by a mix of excitement and confusion, I turned to the trusty search engine on my smartphone, hoping to uncover information about a lunar eclipse scheduled for that night. Yet, to my astonishment, my searches yielded no results. My mention of a lunar eclipse on August 14th, 2021 emerged from the depths of the internet. Undeterred, I embarked on an exhaustive search, typing in various combinations of keywords in a desperate attempt to unveil any hidden information regarding this enigmatic lunar event. To my disappointment, every search ended in frustration as the screen remained devoid of any relevant details. Even when I consulted the official NASA pages, renowned for their wealth of astronomical knowledge, I found no mention of a lunar eclipse occurring on that particular night. Perplexed, I discovered that the last recorded lunar eclipse had taken place sometime in June, with the next one expected to grace the night sky on November 18th through the 19th. Contemplating the situation, I considered the possibility of an obstruction blocking our view of the moon, despite the clear and cloudless night that enveloped us. Fueled by a relentless desire for answers, we embarked on a mission, driving around for hours, scouring the skies in search of the missing moon. Our efforts, however, proved fruitless as the moon refused to reappear, leaving us both puzzled and unnerved. Residing in the Los Angeles area, a thought occurred to me. I turned to the realm of social media, specifically Twitter, to gauge whether anyone else had encountered a similar experience. Scrolling through the platform, I stumbled upon a handful of tweets from individuals residing in the surrounding areas. They too claimed to have witnessed a disappearance of the moon, albeit a few nights prior. These tweets added an additional layer of intrigue to the mysterious occurrences that we had witnessed. Curiously, as I delved deeper into the online conversation, an eerie pattern began to emerge. Some tweets regarding the moon's disappearance would momentarily appear on my search result, only to inexplicably vanish upon closer inspection. I would attempt to visit the profiles of those who had posted these tweets, only to find that they too had seemingly vanished into the digital abyss. Even when I retraced my steps and conducted repeated searches, these elusive tweets and their creators remained elusive, their existence swallowed by the depths of cyberspace. A disconcerting realization took hold. It appeared that the moon was vanishing in Los Angeles every night around 11 p.m. for approximately a week now. However, despite my extensive research and relentless pursuit of information, I found no satisfactory explanation to account for this perplexing phenomenon. Left with more questions than answers, a sense of unease settled within me. The absence of any rational explanation added a layer of fear to the experience that we had shared. The unknown has a way of invoking a deep-seated terror, and the inexplicable disappearance of the moon served as a stark reminder of the boundless mysteries that exist beyond the confines of our understanding. To this day, the events of that fateful August night linger in my memory, a haunting reminder of the enigmatic wonders that occasionally grace our lives. As I ponder the inexplicable disappearance of the moon, my mind is flooded with unanswered questions and the insatiable desire to uncover the truth. What caused the moon to vanish from the night sky that night? Why were there no records or explanations for this occurrence? The answers, it seems, are destined to remain elusive, forever shrouded in the vast expanse of the unknown. Story number 3. Weird photo from Monk's Kirby. So there's this story that's been lingering in my mind for quite some time. It's about a peculiar photograph that I came across when I was younger. The memory of it stayed with me all these years, and I've been meaning to share it in detail in hopes of unraveling its mystery. Let me take you back to that particular moment. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were on a family trip, exploring a new place and creating memories together. As we wandered around capturing the beauty with our camera, I couldn't wait to see the photos. Being the impatient child that I was, I nagged my mom relentlessly, urging me to let me be the first one to look through the pictures. Finally, the moment arrived. I eagerly scrolled through the shots that we had taken, and amidst all the orbs and interesting sights, one photo in particular caught my attention. It was a photograph with a peculiar white blob occupying a significant portion of the frame. My initial reaction was a resounded, "Whoa!" I couldn't believe my eyes. Curiosity got the better of me, and I promptly handed the camera to my mom and sister, who stared at the photo in astonishment. What made it even more bewildering was the fact that this picture had been taken from inside the car, through the window. The little sliver in the bottom left corner resembled the car's mirror, forming a distinctive, outside of a parenthesis shape. The photo fascinated me to the extent that I printed a copy and profoundly brought it to my primary school, eager to share my extraordinary find with my friends. However, as time went on and I grew older, the photograph seemed to disappear. Despite my best efforts to locate it, I couldn't find it anywhere for years. It was a frustrating experience for sure, especially since the camera that had been used for numerous holidays, leading to the deletion of old photos to make space for new ones. During my teenage years, I became increasingly obsessed with the lost photo. I believed that it must hold some sort of significance, and I would frequently implore my mom to revisit the location so I could take more photos and explore further. However, she was hesitant due to the unsettling vibes she experienced during our initial visit. Yet, I managed to convince her on a few occasions, albeit mostly during daylight hours, but those subsequent visits yielded no results as well. I couldn't capture anything remotely similar to that enigmatic image. Months ago, the memory resurfaced in my mind once again, and I decided to confront my mom about it. To my surprise, she mentioned that she might have emailed a photo to a friend. Intrigued by the revelation, I immediately drove into her email account, fervently searching for any trace of the missing photograph. And voila! After literal years of searching, I finally found it. I couldn't believe my luck. Now here I am, a 21-year-old, with this long-lost photo back in my possession. However, rediscovering it didn't bring the relief or closure I had anticipated. Instead, it left me with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty, unable to explain the peculiarities captured in that particular image. I found myself leaning toward the idea of the paranormal. I'm no expert, and without a plausible explanation, I can't help but wonder if there's something otherworldly about it. In my quest for answers, I decided to reach out to a random YouTube channel that specialized in covering ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena. Eagerly, I sent them the photo, hoping for some insights or explanations. Unfortunately, I received no response, leaving me somewhat disheartened. However, undeterred by the setback, I've been contemplating sharing the photo on Reddit, seeking the perspectives of a wider community. Perhaps there, someone will be able to shed some light on this baffling enigma. It bothers me to think that this photograph, which has intrigued me for years, might remain hidden away in an old email, forever forgotten and overlooked. It's my desire to bring attention to it, to encourage discussion and analysis, in the hopes of gaining a deeper understanding of what transpired that day. Maybe, just maybe, through the collective wisdom and expertise of others, I can finally uncover the truth behind this captivating photograph and put my restless mind at ease. Story number 4. Creaking mattress and crawling noises. The incident with the creaking mattress had already left me on edge, and now my sister's account of the crawling noises only added to my growing unease. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something inexplicable was happening in our house, something beyond the realm of logical explanation. Despite my initial skepticism, my sister's genuine fear and the vividness of her description made me reconsider. She recounted how she had heard distinct thumping sounds, as if someone or something was dragging itself across the floor. The thought sent shivers down my spine as I imagined the eerie scene that she must have encountered outside the bathroom. The house itself had a history that whispered tales of strange occurrences. Local legends spoke of restless spirits and unexplained phenomena that had taken place within its walls. While I had always dismissed such stories as mere superstition, the recent events compelled me to confront the possibility that there might be more to them than I'd previously believed. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, I decided to dig deeper into the house's past. I spent hours scouring through old records, newspapers, and online archives, searching for any clues that might shed light on the mysteries that seemed to envelop our home. As I delved deeper into my research, I uncovered a dark secret that had long been concealed from public knowledge. It turned out that our house had a tragic history, marked by a series of unexplained deaths and disappearances. These incidents had occurred decades ago, leaving a trail of sorrow and unanswered questions in its wake. One particular story caught my attention. It spoke of a family who resided in the very same room where my sister and I now slept. According to the accounts, a young girl had vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving her family devastated and the community bewildered. Could it be that the spirits who had met their untimely ends still lingered within these walls, seeking solace or perhaps revenge? The thought sent a chill down my spine, but I couldn't deny the eerie coincidences that seemed to connect the present occurrences to the past tragedies. Determined to find answers, I sought the guidance of paranormal investigators, hoping that their expertise and specialized equipment could unveil the truth behind the inexplicable events. The investigators conducted thorough investigations throughout the entire house, setting up cameras, audio recording devices, and various other instruments to capture any paranormal activity that might occur. Night after night, we anxiously awaited the findings. As the investigators reviewed the collected evidence, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Finally, they presented us with their conclusions. The audio recordings contained faint whispers, unintelligible voices that echoed through the silence of the night. The cameras had captured fleeting shadows moving across the room, their forms barely distinguishable but undeniably present. The investigators confirmed that the house exhibited signs of supernatural activity, validating our experiences and fears. Armed with this newfound knowledge, we faced a difficult decision. Should we flee from the house, seeking refuge in a place untouched by the ethereal? Or should we confront the spirits head-on, determined to bring peace to their restless souls? In the end, we chose the latter. We embarked on a journey of spiritual exploration, seeking guidance from mediums, conducting cleansing rituals, and attempting to establish communication with the otherworldly entities that shared our home with us. It was a daunting and often terrifying path, but one that we felt compelled to take. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months as we persisted in our quest for resolution. Slowly but surely, the occurrences began to dwindle. The creaking mattress, the crawling noises faded into distant memories. Gradually, the energy of the house transformed from one of unease to a more serene ambiance, as if the spirits had found the solace that they sought. Today, as I reflect on the events that unfolded, I'm grateful for the journey that we undertook. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of our belief. Our experiences taught us to embrace the unknown and to seek understanding even in the face of the inexplicable. Though the creaking mattress and crawling noises still remain unexplained, I've come to accept that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Perhaps it's in these enigmas that the true essence of life resides, reminding us of the boundless wonders that exist beyond the realm of comprehension. And so the stories of the creaking mattress and crawling noises stands as a testament to the extraordinary, a reminder that the world is far more complex and enchanting than we could ever fathom. It serves as a constant reminder that sometimes the most profound truths are found in the shadows, lurking just beyond the veil of our understanding. Story number 5. Unexplained experiences throughout my life, with the most recent occurring now. Let me begin by sharing my most recent experience, which has left me perplexed and somewhat unnerved. As an artist, I have a small black Christmas tree adorned with battery-powered purple lights on my art desk. It's been a festive addition to my workspace for several years without any peculiar incidents, until recently. On the first day of setting up the tree, the lights abruptly went out, signaling the demise of the batteries. Being a chronic procrastinator, I neglected to replace them promptly. However, to my surprise, the following night at precisely 2:45 a.m., the tree's lights unexpectedly flickered on, emitting a vibrant glow that lasted for a full minute. I brushed it off as a coincidence, assuming the batteries still might have a faint trace of power. When I attempted to switch the lights back on, they remained unresponsive. Considering it a mere fluke, I dismissed the incident as a whole. Yet, it continued to occur with astonishing regularity. For the first 3 nights, at the exact stroke of 2:45 a.m., the lights reignited, bathing the room in their ephemeral radiance before plunging into darkness once more. The 4th night, my husband, who had a night shift scheduled the following day, happened to be awake with me when this inexplicable phenomenon transpired. He witnessed it for the first time, assuming I had replaced the batteries unbeknownst to him. However, the truth was that I had not purchased any replacements yet, and her home was devoid of a spare battery. I recounted on how this nightly occurrence has been transpiring consistently, and while he believed me, he also expressed skepticism about the exact timing. Nonetheless, his skepticism was challenged the following night, as he was once again present when the tree illuminated at that precise hour. To clarify, the tree's lights are equipped with a simple on-off switch, devoid of any timer or programmed mechanism, leaving me perplexed and unable to offer a rational explanation. To my dismay, my husband, formerly a staunch skeptic, proposed a theory that struck me deeply. He suggested that perhaps the timing of these events correlated with the time of my father's passing earlier this year. My father had lived in the apartment above ours, and unfortunately, the coroner didn't provide an exact time of death. Although my father's passing had already brought immense grief, this particular hypothesis intensified my emotional distress. The notion that my father's spirit or some other supernatural force might be influencing the behavior of the tree was a disconcerting thought, one that I found difficult to grapple with. Moving on to a previous occurrence which unfolded a few months before my father's demise, and just weeks prior to the loss of our beloved dog. As a night owl, I frequently found myself engrossed in art projects or engrossed in books until the early hours of the morning, eventually retiring to bed around 6 a.m. During one such late-night episode, I was diligently drawing in the living room, while my husband peacefully slumbered in the bedroom. Our loyal companion Misty, our faithful canine companion, joined me, as she always did. Suddenly, we both heard a series of hurried footsteps echoing from behind the closed door, reminiscent of someone rushing to reach it. Startled, Misty reacted instinctively, her fur standing up on end as she sprinted towards the door. Initially, I presumed my husband had an urgent need to use the bathroom, prompting his hasty approach. However, much to my bewilderment, the door never swung open. I cautiously proceeded to check on my husband, only to find him sound asleep in bed. Perplexed, I rationalized that he must have been sleepwalking, and I resumed my artistic endeavors. Yet to my astonishment, the energy in the room felt different, as if a presence lingered in the air. Misty, usually an exuberant and fearless dog, now cowered in the corner, her tail tucked between her legs. Concerned, I decided to investigate further. Leaving my art supplies behind, I cautiously ventured into the hallway. following the path where the footsteps had seemingly disappeared. The house was silent, the only sound being the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I felt a chill run down my spine as I reached the closed door leading to the basement. It was a part of the house I rarely visited, as I held a sense of mystery and apprehension towards it. Summoning my courage, I turned the doorknob and descended the creaking stairs. The musty smell of the basement filled my nostrils, and the dim light bulb flickered overhead. As I reached the bottom step, I noticed a peculiar draft, as if a window had been left open. However, all the windows were securely shut, leaving me puzzled. I cautiously walked further into the basement, my footsteps echoing on the cold concrete floor. It felt as if the temperature dropped several degrees, and an eerie silence enveloped the space. Then, in the corner of the room, I noticed an old wooden chest covered in dust and cobwebs. It seemed out of place, as if it had been forgotten and neglected for years. Curiosity overwhelmed me, and I approached the chest, wiping away the thick layer of grime. As I opened it, a rush of emotions washed over me. Inside were old photographs, handwritten letters, and trinkets from the past. It was a treasure trove of memories belonging to someone who had once inhabited this house. In that moment, it became clear to me that there was more to this house than met the eye. The footsteps, the unexplained energy, and now this forgotten chest, they were all connected. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stumbled upon a forgotten chapter in the house's history, one that yearned to be remembered. With a renewed sense of determination, I delved deeper into the mysteries of this house. I researched its history, spoke to longtime neighbors, and even visited the local library to search for clues. As the pieces started to come together, a story began to unfold, a tale of love, loss, and unfinished business. It turned out that the house had once been home to a young couple, Sarah and William, who had lived there in the early 1900s. Tragedy had struck their lives, leading to their untimely separation. Sarah, unable to move on, had remained in the house, her spirit forever tied to its walls. As I dug deeper into their story, I discovered that Sarah had loved to paint. She had an artist's soul just like me. It seemed that our paths had somehow intertwined, bridging the gap between the past and present. With a newfound purpose, I decided to honor Sarah's memory and help her find peace. I dedicated myself to restoring the forgotten chest, carefully preserving the memories that it held. I also set up an art studio in the basement, a space where Sarah's spirit could find solace and create once again. As days turned into weeks, and I immersed myself in Sarah's world, the house began to change. The energy shifted from one of restlessness to one of tranquility. The footsteps ceased, replaced by a sense of calm. One evening, as I sat in the basement surrounded by Sarah's paintings and my own, I felt a presence beside me. I glanced up to see a faint ethereal figure, a woman with a gentle smile. It was Sarah, finally at peace. In that moment, I knew that my journey had not only brought closure to Sarah, but also to myself. I had discovered the power of connection, the ability of art and history to transcend time, and as I continued to paint in the basement, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the enigmatic footsteps that had led me on this extraordinary path of discovery and healing. Story number 6. Experiences while trying to cleanse my apartment. My husband and I have been going through an incredibly rough patch lately, and it's as if some unseen force is determined to thwart our every move. We often find ourselves jokingly frustrated, mentioning our string of bad luck, but deep down we can't shake the feeling that there's something more to it. You see, we've been desperately trying to relocate from our current city and state, but it seems like an invisible hand is actively working against us, preventing any progress we make. It's become so overwhelming that I've started having recurring dreams about the need to cleanse our house and seek someone who can potentially cleanse us as well. It's as if the negative intentions directed at us have accumulated, leading to the attachment of some malevolent entity. Initially, I brushed off these dreams as mere figments of my imagination, but they persisted and grew increasingly intense. One day I mustered the courage to share these unsettling dreams with my husband, fully expecting him to dismiss them as nonsensical. However, much to my surprise, he confided that he too had been experiencing similar sensations and was willing to explore the idea of cleansing. It was a remarkable revelation, considering he had always been the world's most ardent skeptic. Yet his proximity to me and the bizarre occurrences that seemed to revolve around me had ignited a newfound curiosity within him, causing him to question everything. Desperate for a solution, we reached out to a close friend and shared our haunting experiences. Our friend, well versed in spiritual matters, provided us with a unique type of wood and detailed instructions on how to perform a cleansing ritual. With the gift in hand, my husband eagerly urged us to undertake the ritual immediately. But I constantly felt drained and found myself resisting the idea time and time again. However, tonight, my husband declared that enough was enough and we couldn't delay any further. It was time to confront the malevolence head on. We commenced the cleaning process in our bedroom, the very space that always emanated an eerie aura. As we began, an inexplicable tingling sensation coursed through our bodies, akin to an electric static, causing the hairs on our arms to stand on end. And then a spine-chilling moment transpired. In the midst of the ritual, both of us caught sight of the antique mirror that had once belonged to my grandfather. To our horror, we swore we saw a dark figure reflected within it, standing near the closet. Overwhelmed with fear, we managed to regain our composure and rushed to cleanse the mirror and its surrounding area. Astonishingly, we performed the ritual. The entire figure vanished right before our eyes, and the room appeared to grow brighter within the mirror's reflection. It was a sight I could scarcely comprehend, for I had never witnessed anything so inexplicable. Undeterred by the unnerving encounter, we pressed on, cleansing each room of the house one by one. In every instance, the static electricity sensation enveloped us, only to dissipate once we completed the purification process in that particular space. At long last, we reached the final room, ready to banish any remnants of the malevolent presence from our lives. However, as my husband lit the special wood, an unexpected event occurred that sent him into a state of panic. He suddenly experienced a bout of terror, as if spiders were crawling all over his arm. Knowing my husband, I was certain that he never would feign to such a thing just to frighten me. The sheer terror etched into his face was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. Lasting only about 20 seconds, his panic subsided after he frantically swatted at his arm, as though attempting to dislodge the imaginary spiders. He later confided that it was the most bizarre experience he had ever encountered. He insisted that in that moment, he had seen an enormous spider on his arm, yet simultaneously, it had not been there at all. We hastened to complete the cleansing in the room and subsequently the entire house. Although my husband remained shaken for quite some time, I could tell that something profound had shifted. The apartment now exuded an inexplicable lightness that I'd never fully grasped until that moment. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted, and the reference to the space feeling lighter suddenly made perfect sense. Now, dear reader, I implore you for your insight. Have you ever come across such extraordinary occurrences? Is there any knowledge that you possess that could shed light on our experiences? We're contemplating and conducting the cleansing ritual a few more times, just to ensure the malevolent entity has truly been banished from our lives. Any guidance or advice that you can offer would be greatly appreciated as we strive to navigate this extraordinary journey towards liberation and peace. Story number 7. A Visit for a Tragedy. When I was just a young child, I had the privilege of hearing a captivating story from my beloved step-grandfather. He resided in the vibrant city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and his tales always had a way of capturing my imagination. Today, I shall retell this particular story from his perspective, hoping to bring us closer together through this shared experience. Many years ago, my wife and I returned home after a delightful evening of revelry with our friends. Despite the lateness of the hour, I decided to indulge in one last drink before retiring to bed. Sneaking quietly out into the backyard, I relished the soothing moonlight as I savored the taste of my chosen libation. After finishing my drink, I prepared myself for a peaceful slumber and stealthily crept back inside, careful not to disturb my sleeping wife. As I settled into bed, on the cusp of falling into a blissful sleep, I was suddenly startled by the creaking sound of my bedroom door opening. My heart leapt in my chest, and I anxiously sprang to an upright position, wondering who in the world could be invading our sanctum at this ungodly hour. To my utter astonishment, it was my long-departed brother who entered the room and seated himself beside me on the bed. You see, my brother had tragically passed away 15 long years ago, making his presence all the more bewildering. Struggling to comprehend this inexplicable visitation, I sat up in disbelief, questioning whether the previous drink had somehow distorted my perception. Before I could gather my thoughts and find my voice, my brother began speaking, his ethereal words permeating the room. I realize this must be exceedingly strange for you, but I've come here with a profound message to impart. It is imperative that I deliver this message face to face, for I have learned that God himself is on the way to claim your firstborn son. I am sorry, dear brother, but this is the divine plan unfolding, and I wanted to be here to comfort you and assure you that I shall personally escort your son to his heavenly house. His words hung heavily in the air, leaving me speechless and utterly perplexed. The thing is, my boys had long since grown into adulthood, leaving independently and forging their own paths. The notion of losing a child seemed inconceivable, and the entire encounter felt like a fervid dream, a figment of my imagination with no rational basis. When the first rays of morning light pierced through the curtains, I awoke with my brother's visitation still fresh in my mind, causing a swirl of conflicting emotions. Uncertain of how to interpret this otherworldly occurrence, I pondered its meaning but ultimately decided to let it go, hoping it was nothing more than a fleeting hallucination. Throughout the day, I engaged in phone conversations with both my beloved sons, and they both seemed to be in good spirits, their voices brimming with vitality and joy. With a sense of relief, I gradually allowed the otherworldly encounter to fade from my thoughts, and I immersed myself in the activities of the day. However, as night descended upon us once again, tragedy struck our lives with unfathomable force. It was on that fateful night that my eldest son, in a cruel twist of fate, lost his precious life in a devastating motorcycle accident. The news shattered my heart into a million jagged fragments. I found myself revisiting the cryptic encounter with my departed brother just hours earlier. The coincidence was too striking to ignore, and a haunting question seeped into my mind. Had my brother's visitation been an eerie foretelling of this calamity? The pain and grief that engulfed our family in the wake of this heartbreaking loss was indescribable. Every moment was seeped in sorrow, and I couldn't help but reflect on the inexplicable sequence of events that had unfolded in such a short span of time. How could a mere dream or hallucination have contained such prophetic power? Was it truly a message from a realm beyond our comprehension, warning me of the impending tragedy that would befall our family? As time went on, the lingering ache in my soul only intensified. I searched for solace and meaning amidst the wreckage of my shattered existence, desperately seeking answers that seemed forever elusive. Perhaps it was the inexplicable nature of my brother's visitation and the subsequent loss that consumed me, urging me to unravel the secrets of the universe and find some semblance of closure. In the years that followed, I delved into countless philosophical texts, spiritual teachings, and esoteric studies, yearning to comprehend the unfathomable mysteries that lie beyond our mortal realm. I attended seminars, engaged in discussions with learned individuals, and explored various religions and metaphysical beliefs in my tireless pursuit of understanding. But alas, the answer to the enigma that had consumed my existence remained tantalizingly out of reach. As time marched on, the pain gradually transformed into a bittersweet ache, an eternal scar etched into the fabric of my being. The loss of my son was an irrevocable wound, but it also became a catalyst for personal growth and introspection. I began to cherish every fleeting moment, embracing the fragility of life and the inherent beauty that lay hidden within its transient nature. Today, as I recount this extraordinary tale, the echoes of that night still reverberate within me. The inexplicable encounter with my departed brother, the warning of an impending tragedy, and the subsequent loss of my precious son remain etched in my memory like an indelible mark. While the answers to life's greatest mysteries continue to elude me, I've come to accept that some truths may forever reside in the realm of the unknowable. And so, dear listener, I share this story with you, not in the hopes of providing a definitive explanation or closure, but as a testament to the unfathomable intricacies of existence itself. Life, as I've come to realize, is a tapestry woven with both joy and sorrow, laughter and tears, and the unyielding bonds that connect us all. As we navigate this enigmatic journey, we may find solace in the inexplicable and strength in the face of life's most profound uncertainties. Story number 8. There's an entity in my apartment that wakes me up at 4:50 a.m. every night. I wake up in my room, engulfed in total darkness, and a surge of unexplained fear washes over me. It's as if something ominous is lurking nearby, observing my every move. The weight of its presence suffocates me, but suddenly, I'm awoken from this distressing nightmare, realizing that my room isn't as dark as my dream had made it out to be. Relief floods through me and I attempt to shake off the lingering feeling. However, things take a turn for the worse. The frequency of these unsettling dreams intensifies, progressing from occurring once in every few months to once or twice every month. Each time, the dream seems to advance in its malevolence. Initially, I try to combat the darkness by switching on the floor lamp, but as I do, I jolt awake. Yet, in subsequent dreams, the floor lamp fails to work, forcing me to rely on the feeble glow of my phone's light. Soon enough, even that proves futile, leaving me with no choice but to either fumble for the wall switch or venture out of my room to rouse myself from sleep's clutches. These haunting experiences become more pronounced following Halloween. On that fateful night, I find myself home alone with a friend, the kitchen bathed in a warm light. Suddenly, we hear the distinct sound of the light switch being flicked off. Panic seizes us as we entertain the notion that intruders might have broken in. Fear-stricken, we reach out for help, hastily summoning a mutual friend. However, once he arrives, we discover that everything is undisturbed, save for the inexplicable absence of illumination caused by the light switch being off. Since that eerie Halloween night, the paranormal activity only escalates. The switches in my home inexplicably flick off when I am alone. Doors swing open and slam shut in the dead of the night, and one particularly chilling instance involves a candle spontaneously bursting into flames. These occurrences coincide with the exasperation of my dreams, which grow increasingly sinister with each passing night. Desperate for answers, I start keeping track of the time of these unsettling incidents. To my astonishment, they consistently manifest between the hours of 4:50 a.m. and 5 a.m. There was one exception, a solitary instance at 5:50 a.m. when I happened to be sleeping in a different room. This peculiar consistency further fuels my trepidation. The nightmares and nocturnal terrors reached their zenith last month, coinciding with my decision to rearrange the furniture in my room, including moving my bed to a new location. As if the ethereal entities resent the intrusion upon their domain, they retaliate with unrelenting torment. The dreams now morph into bouts of sleep paralysis where I find myself imprisoned in a state of immobility, accompanied by eerie glimpses of dark shadows lurking just beyond my field of vision upon awakening. Last night, an insomnia held me captive. Sleep evaded me until 4 a.m. Succumbing to the mounting anxiety, I reluctantly ingested a melatonin pill, a desperate attempt to stave off the impending dread associated with the approaching 4:50 a.m. mark. As I slowly drifted into slumber, my eyelids fluttering, I happened to catch a glimpse of my room with a slightly ajar view. To my shock, I witnessed a human-like shadow materialize, emerging from the very wall adjacent to my bed and stealthily traversing the expanse of my room. My heart leaps into my throat, and with sheer instinct, I lunge to the floor light, illuminating the room in an instant. But as the warm glow bathes the space, there is no trace of the shadowy figure. Nonetheless, the lingering sensation of being watched persists. Entwined with an inexplicable dread, the clock reads 4:10 a.m., and my pulse races. Today, my mother gathers her friends in the kitchen, their laughter and conversation temporarily alleviating the tension that permeates our home. However, in a horrifying twist of events, a glass suddenly shatters into a myriad of shards, seemingly without cause or warning. Even my mother, someone notoriously skeptical about such supernatural phenomena, cannot deny the mounting evidence before her eyes. Intrigued and disturbed by my accounts, she begins contemplating the idea of seeking assistance from a priest, hoping that a spiritual intervention might bring an end to the relentless disturbances plaguing our lives. As we share our experiences, it becomes evident that she too has been jolted awake at precisely 5 a.m. on numerous occasions, adding yet another perplexing layer to this chilling enigma that has ensnared our household. Story number 9. Shadow worn that didn't come from anywhere was oscillating on my wall. The thing could sense me, and at some point it tried to attack. In May of 2015, an inexplicable event occurred that forever left a mark on my memory. It was a dark night. I found myself lying in bed, engrossed in a phone conversation with a friend. Little did I know that the tranquility of that moment would soon be shattered by a peculiar phenomenon. As I chatted away, my gaze inadvertently shifted toward the wall in front of me. To my astonishment, I noticed a faint worm-like shadow moving in a strange, oscillating manner. Perplexed by this bizarre occurrence, I couldn't help but exclaim, "What on earth is that?" Sharing my bewilderment with my friend, they suggested that it might be a spider web. Curiosity piqued, I cautiously approached the enigmatic shadow, only to witness a surprising reaction. As I drew closer, it seemed to sense my presence, and instead of retreating, ascended toward the ceiling with remarkable speed. My mind raced with questions as I retreated to my bed, pondering the nature of this mysterious phenomenon. However, when I glanced back at the wall, much to my astonishment, the shadow had returned to its original position, oscillating just as before. Determined to uncover the source of this strange spectacle, I grabbed a whisk and patiently awaited the shadow's midpoint in its oscillation. Swiftly, I placed the whisk over the shadow, hoping to capture or disturb it in some way. To my dismay, the shadow remained unperturbed, unfazed by my feeble attempts to interfere with its presence. Realizing that the shadow must originate from an object or entity, I pondered its elusive nature. In an attempt to unveil its origin, I decided to darken the room by switching off the light and resorting to the illumination of my phone. Much to my surprise, the shadow persisted, unaffected by the change in lighting conditions. I even experimented with the curtains, manipulating every available light source in my room, yet the oscillating shadow remained relentless. Undeterred by the shadow's enigmatic resilience, I resolved to touch it in hopes of unveiling its mystery. Drawing nearer to the wall, I strategized, waiting for the shadow to descend to its lowest point before attempting to make contact. Swiftly, I leapt into a nearby chair, extending my hand toward the wall, aiming to touch the shadow before it had a chance to elude my grasp. To my disbelief, as my hand made contact with the wall, the shadow seemed to pass through it effortlessly. Astonished, I observed as the shadow materialized above my hand when it rested against the wall, only to vanish instantly when I slowly withdrew my hand, leaving a mere 2 to 3 centimeters of separation. Such an inexplicable occurrence defied any logical explanation, for no light source at my disposal could account for this strange phenomenon. At this juncture, I resigned myself to the fact that my life would now be perpetually intertwined with the presence of this shadow worm, ceaselessly oscillating upon my wall. Though I had found an odd sense of tranquility in accepting its existence, an insatiable curiosity lingered within me, urging me to explore further before surrendering to sleep. Remarkably, as the shadow approached the ceiling, in its oscillating trajectory, its movement transformed into a serpentine dance, remarkably swift and elusive. I observed this peculiar behavior from the vantage point of a chair, standing on its sturdy foundation and cautiously reaching toward the ceiling, my hand extended. Anticipating the shadow's arrival, I instinctively withdrew my hand in a swift motion, and to my astonishment, a portion of the shadow detached itself from the wall, almost as if it were trying to pursue me. It lasted only a moment, a mere centimeter of separation, but it was a pivotal moment that sent shivers down my spine. In that fleeting instance, I bore witness to a shadow that lacked any discernible surface behind it, an anomaly that filled me with an overwhelming sense of fear. Sleep should have been an impossibility after such a harrowing encounter, but exhaustion eventually overpowered my racing thoughts. Despite the lingering unease, I reasoned that if the shadow had intended to harm me, it could have easily done so already. Drifting into an uneasy slumber, I experienced haunting dreams plagued by the image of this enigmatic shadow. When I awoke the following morning around 10 a.m., my heart skipped a beat. To my surprise, the shadow persisted, steadfast in its oscillating routine. Seeking respite from this bewildering spectacle, I decided to retreat to my bed, just 1 more hour of sleep, hoping that upon awakening again, the shadow would have dissipated into thin air. Regrettably, my wishful thinking went unfulfilled. An hour later at 11 a.m., I groggily opened my eyes to find the wall empty, devoid of the mesmerizing oscillations that had become an unexpected fixture of my life. A profound sense of melancholy washed over me as I realized that the shadow had vanished without a trace, leaving me yearning for its enigmatic presence. Unable to contain my excitement and longing for validation, I shared the peculiar events with my skeptical friend, who had been present on the other end of the phone throughout the ordeal. Knowing that mere words wouldn't suffice, I retrieved my trusty iPad, using its camera to capture the mesmerizing shadow in action. In hindsight, I'm grateful for my decision to record those moments, as I now possess tangible evidence in the form of videos, immortalizing the uncanny phenomenon that unfolded before my very eyes. To this day, I remain haunted by the memory of that shadow worm that graced my wall, evoking a mixture of curiosity, fear, and fascination within me. The inexplicable nature of its existence has left an indelible mark on my psyche, forever altering my perception of the world around me. As I reflect upon that peculiar night in May of 2015, I find solace in the knowledge that even the most extraordinary of experiences can be captured and shared, providing solace to others who may have encountered their own enigmatic shadows. Story number 10. Graveyard Sickness. Recently, I had a rather peculiar experience during one of my classes. To my surprise, it was held in a cemetery. You see, we had the unique opportunity to meet with a guest speaker who would enlighten us about the notable individuals laid to rest in the hallowed ground. Although the prospect of exploring a cemetery might sound eerie to some, the program was designed to focus on the remarkable achievements of those interred there, rather than delving into anything gory or unsettling. However, as soon as we arrived at the cemetery, strange occurrences began to unfold, sending a shiver down my spine. One of my colleagues suddenly fell ill, her condition rapidly deteriorating to the point of near unconsciousness. Concerned for her well-being, she had no choice but to retreat to her car to rest. Moments later, another classmate experienced a bizarre transformation. His complexion drained of all color, leaving him as pallid as a sheet of paper. The poor soul began swaying precariously before succumbing to gravity, prompting a group of us to rush him to his aid and prevent him from hitting the ground. As you can imagine, tension filled the air at this point, yet despite the growing unease, the program persevered. It was during this unsettling period that a fellow student voiced her worries about the possibility of some sort of noxious gas or toxic air affecting our class, attributing the sudden illnesses to an environmental factor. Although the rest of us had not yet experienced any discomfort, I noticed that several other of my classmates, who were typically blessed with sun-kissed tans, owing to their coastal proximity, were gradually assuming a deathly pallor of gray and white. In fact, they were beginning to resemble the man who had fainted moments earlier. As we ventured deeper into the cemetery, the atmosphere became even more ominous. From the surrounding forest, we could hear the distant, bone-chilling screams of a woman. What perplexed us further was the fact that we were mere miles away from any schools or playgrounds. Residing in an area characterized primarily by a series of segregated graveyards. Stretching as far as the eye could see, there were at least 2 or 3 miles of graves, creating an ethereal landscape. I must admit, I myself became disoriented that day, wandering aimlessly for a good 20 minutes while deliberately attempting to locate my classmates on the main road. However, my efforts were in vain, and the only soul I encountered during that time was a woman walking her dog. These cemeteries were ancient, their occupants long forgotten by the living, resulting in few visitors aside from historians and genealogists. Curiously, our guest speaker seemed entirely oblivious to the haunting cries emanating from the depths of the forest. The rest of us exchanged uneasy glances, unnerved by the disconnect between her composure and the growing apprehension. As the speaker continued her presentation, I found myself succumbing to dizziness and lightheadedness, although such sensations were not entirely unfamiliar to me. You see, I have a proclivity for fainting episodes, often plagued by a lack of proper sleep. However, what puzzled me the most was that my previous healthy classmates, who have never experienced such medical conditions or fainting spells, were now suffering alongside me. They were individuals of slender build and robust health, ruling out any psychological causes. Furthermore, the ambient temperature was cool, even bordering on chilly, thus eliminating the possibility of overheating as a potential trigger for their ailments. As I pondered this perplexing turn of events, I couldn't help but associate it with the proximity of Halloween, a time when folklore suggests that the boundary between our world and the next becomes thin, allowing for supernatural phenomenon to manifest more easily. In an attempt to gain some clarity, I resorted to the infinite wisdom of the internet, conducting a thorough search, Much to my surprise, I discovered that fainting episodes within graveyards are not as uncommon as one might think. This revelation left me yearning for a plausible explanation, whether it be rooted in the natural or the supernatural realm. So, dear listener, I implore you, do you possess any knowledge or insights that could shed light on this mystifying phenomenon? Is there a logical reason behind these synchronous episodes of pre-syncope and syncope? Or are we at the mercy of forces beyond our comprehension? Story number 11. Have you ever stayed the night at a haunted site? The very first time I embarked on this daring adventure, it was within the confines of an ancient cemetery nestled in the quaint town of my childhood. A mischievous bunch of friends and I, driven by a curious blend of audacity and fascination, stealthily slipped from the confines of our homes, clandestinely rendezvousing at the solemn cemetery's gates. Although the region I inhabit in the United States lacked the extensive historical lineage of the East Coast or Europe, it bore witness to the presence of Native Americans in an earlier time, while also harboring graves from the post-Civil War era dating back to the late 1870s. The cemetery's low-lying gates beckoned us to hop over with ease, granting access to the otherworldly domain where time had stood still. As we ventured deeper into this realm of the departed, we found ourselves drawn to a magnificent statue, a towering figure standing at approximately 10 feet in height, exuding an air of mourning. Its ethereal countenance veiled by pristine white stone marble, the statue was shrouded in legends of a haunted cemetery where the veil between the living and the dead was said to grow thin, allowing for the occurrence of the eerie phenomena to begin with. Tales recounted by older teens echoed through the years, weaving a tapestry of the supernatural. Choosing this particular area as our rendezvous point, we brought along a few flickering candles and a small flashlight to illuminate our surroundings. The gusts of wind that swept through the cemetery threatened to extinguish our candle's flame, despite the protection of the glass jar. Some of our companions sought solace in the newer section of the cemetery, nestled among the comforting embrace of marbled benches, their flickering flames casting a ghostly glow. A few, overcome with trepidation, ultimately succumbed to their fates and hastened back to the refuge of their homes. However, I made a deliberate choice to remain seated beneath the mourning angel's towering figure until break of dawn, acutely aware of the imminent discovery that would await me upon my mother's awakening. An inconspicuous disposable flashlight accompanied me, its feeble glow serving as a precaution against drawing unwanted attention from any late-night passerbyers. Though I harbored doubts about the cemetery's visibility from the nearby streets, hidden as it was by gentle undulations of the land. As the clock approached 3 a.m., my companions bid their silent farewells, gradually dispersing towards the safety of their homes. Yet an inexplicable force compelled me to stay. Alone amidst the sacred silence, the distant sounds of nocturnal creatures intermingled with my thoughts, heightening a sense of unease that coursed through my veins. A palpable fear lingered, an apprehension that veered between the primal threat of coyotes or mountain lions and the ethereal mysteries whispered by the cemetery's legendary reputation. Steeling myself against these shadows, I devised a plan in case of imminent danger. A swift escape towards the mausoleum, where a gated section awaited, its entrance secured only by a doorknob-like latch that withheld no lock. As the clock neared 5 a.m., my senses became increasingly attuned to the surroundings, aware of the subtle machinations of my own mind. The statue, the guardian of this hallowed ground, seemed to defy the constraints of the immobile, deftly moving its head and hands with an eerie fluidity. Startled, my heart leaped within my chest, and instinctively I grasped for my trusty flashlight, flooding the immediate vicinity with a beam of light. In that moment, a faint glow danced in the distance, a fragile luminescence that flickered intermittently, reminiscent of the gentle ebb and flow of a dying candle's flame. An initial impulse suggested that my mischievous friend had orchestrated this macabre spectacle to toy with my emotions, yet the enigmatic light remained distant, never inching closer, nor revealing any discernible direction. Overwhelmed by a cacophony of emotions, I mustered the courage to rise from my perch beneath the statue's sorrowful gaze. Abandoning the solitude of the cemetery altogether, panic propelled my footsteps as I sprinted homeward, a sudden paranoia urging me to believe that an unseen force pursued me relentlessly. In my haste, I charted an erratic course, originally intending to navigate through the newer section, leading me to a street closer to my residence. Yet my trajectory abruptly shifted as an instinctual dread took hold, compelling me to veer toward the nearest fence with the direct access to the street. In the throes of this desperate escape, I momentarily disregarded the fact that this particular section harbored an aged chain-like barrier, necessitating another swift change in any direction. An indomitable force tugged at my subconscious, as if the cemetery itself sought to ensnare me within its timeless embrace. Struggling against the unseen adversary, I vaulted over the wrought iron fence, spurred on by an urgency that forbade me to look back, consumed by an unyielding terror that engulfed my whole being. Arriving at the opening of my street, I came to an abrupt halt, feeling the world spin around me. An overwhelming nausea threatened to overcome me as my mouth turned arid, a stark contrast to the cascading sweat that drenched my body. Gasping for breath, I doubled over, my heart pounding incessantly within my throat. Every fiber of my being yearned to expel the anguish, yet I restrained myself, acutely aware that any sound might betray my presence. Mustering the last shreds of composure, I proceeded homeward, a spectral figure veiled by a cloak of darkness. Upon entering the familiar house, I shed my soiled garments within the confines of the garage, their disheveled state rendered less conspicuous than appearing before my parents clad in sweat-soaked jeans and sneakers. Seeking respite, I stumbled toward the kitchen, my body yearning for replenishment, as if every drop of moisture had been mercilessly drained. In a desperate act, I consumed an unquenchable succession of 10 water glasses, their coolness soothing my parched throat. With the tumultuous night finally laid to rest, I ascended the staircase leading to my room, each footfall echoing with a weighty significance. Ensconced within the solitude of my personal sanctuary, I contemplated the events that had unfolded, each moment etching itself indelibly into my consciousness. The morning sun ushered in a new day, casting its gentle glow upon the world, yet I could not bring myself to divulge the tumultuous conclusion of my nocturnal sojourn to my companions. Instead, I concealed the depths of my terror, recounting a truncated version of the events that concluded with my patient vigil extended until dawn's embrace. The night's crescendo, the pinnacle of my fear, the frantic dash through the graveyard, haunted by an insidious pursuit, it remained shrouded in the depths of my soul, unshared and unspoken. Nor did I disclose the details of my frenzied thirst quenched by countless glasses of water, or the disconcerting revelation of my mother's own unsettling encounter, mistaking the sound of distant weeping for my presence, despite my protestations in the contrary. In silence, I bore the weight of this nightmarish experience, weaving its memories into the tapestry of my existence, and thus, a secret chapter of my youth remained forever etched within the confines of my heart, an enigmatic tale that would continue to flicker its flame of mystery, forever burning in the depths of my being. Story number 12. An old family legend turns out to be true. Ever since I was a kid, there's been a haunting story on my mother's side of the family, one that's been passed down from generation to generation. My older siblings, cousins, and even my youngest aunts and uncles have all been captivated by this tale. It's somewhat of a ghost story, but as with many family stories, the times and details tend to become murky over time. Nevertheless, I can vividly recall the first time this story was told to me, and it was set in the early 1920s. Allow me to recount it for you. According to the tale, a family member, whether it was my great-grandmother or great-grand-aunt, the specifics seem to vary, was just a young child when their family finally embarked on a journey. They were traveling, possibly at the part of the Dust Bowl movement, and their ultimate destination was California. As evening approached, the family decided to pull over and enjoy a picnic before setting camp for the night. Little did they know that this fateful decision would forever change their lives. In the dead of night, the child, my great-grandmother or great-grand-aunt, was awoken by a blood-curdling scream and the sound of frantic yelling. Frightened and filled with trepidation, she instinctively sought refuge by hiding behind a nearby tree. Peering out from her hiding space, she witnessed a scene of unspeakable horror. The rest of her family, her parents and siblings, and possibly even distant relatives, were mercilessly hacked to death with a ghastly axe. The image of that nightmarish sight would forever be etched into her young mind. The story continued, weaving a chilling legend around this horrifying event. It was said that if anyone dared to camp at the site of the massacre, they would hear the anguished screams of the victims echoing through the night. The Axeman killer responsible for this heinous crime was never apprehended, leaving the tale with an unresolved sense of mystery and dread. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, when I delved into my family history through Ancestry.com and embarked on a journey of research and discovery. It was during this investigation that I stumbled upon a revelation that confirmed the truth behind our haunting family history. Seeking confirmation, I turned to a great uncle who shared with me the verified details. As it turned out, my great-grandmother was a survivor of the Apache massacre that occurred in New Mexico back in 1861. Intrigued by this newfound knowledge, I made a pilgrimage to the site of the tragic event, only to find that there was not even a Wikipedia page dedicated to this dark chapter in history. According to the records, the Apache tribe had mercilessly attacked settlers who were en route to California, targeting their wagon train as it passed through the area. Tragically, my great-grandmother's entire family had fallen victim to this savage onslaught. She was the sole survivor, a fragile witness to the brutality that had unfolded before her innocent eyes. In a desperate bid to ensure her survival, her mother had hidden her away, shielding her from the wrath of the marauding Apache warriors. Miraculously, she had managed to escape their notice and evade their merciless blades. Days later, as fate would have it, she was discovered by a garrison militia that happened to be patrolling the area. Recognizing the magnitude of the tragedy and the vulnerability of this young child, they took her under their protective wing. Eventually, she was handed over to the care of the nearby Catholic Church, where she would find solace and stability in the midst of her immeasurable loss. And so, this harrowing tale, which has been passed down through generations of my family, had its roots in the dark and tragic event that took place over 6 decades before the 1920s. The details may have become distorted and maybe embellished with time, but the core of the story remained, a testament to the resilience and fortitude of my ancestors in the face of unimaginable horror. It was a chilling reminder of the deep scars that history can leave on a family, echoing through the ages and shaping the narratives that define who we are. Story number 13. My dog is scared of something on the next street. I've always been fascinated by the heightened senses of animals compared to humans. Their ability to perceive smells and sounds far beyond our reach is well known. But I often wonder, could their sensory capabilities extend even further into the realm of the paranormal? Every day, my wife and I take our dog on 2 walks, one in the morning and another in the evening. We reside in the heart of a bustling neighborhood surrounded by streets on all sides. During our evening strolls, as dusk slowly transitions into night, something peculiar happens. Our beloved canine companion sometimes becomes visibly agitated, despite the absence of any apparent threat. Normally, she's a friendly and sociable dog, showing interest in other dogs as she encounters or simply observing the neighborhood cats. Barking is a rarity for her, except in one particular circumstance, when she comes across men wearing hoodies. But her aversion to the street directly in front of her house is the most perplexing of all. No matter how much we encourage her, she steadfastly refuses to venture out into the street. Whenever we attempt to lead her in that direction, she whimpers and cries and pulls away as if in distress. Of course, we would never force her to confront her fear. In fact, the first time we noticed her unease, she pulled back so forcefully that she slipped out of her collar and sprinted back to the safety of her own street. A few weeks ago, while engrossed in responding to work emails on my phone, I absent-mindedly wandered down the opposite side of our block, heading toward the street that unnerves our dog. And there it was again, her sudden halt, a clear indication that she would not go any further. It was evident that the source of her apprehension wasn't limited to a specific corner or intersection. She knew to avoid that path from both sides. On several other occasions when we returned home late, I opted to take an alternate route, avoiding the problematic street altogether. Yet even then, a perplexing encounter unfolded. We turned down a different street, and as we walked, my loyal companion abruptly stopped and fixed her gaze upon a seemingly ordinary brick wall. She exhibited signs of fear, cowering her head as if in the presence of the unseen threat. Intrigued and concerned, I switched on my flashlight, hoping to uncover the cause. To my dismay, all that greeted us was a sight of plain brick walls, devoid of any living creatures or hidden dangers. These incidents have left a myriad of questions swirling in my mind. Is there something my dog senses that eludes my own perceptions? Could there be a supernatural presence lurking within the vicinity of our home? Or perhaps there's a deeper, more enigmatic explanation for the uncanny reactions. I find myself yearning for answers, eager to unravel the mysteries that unfold during our walks. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. There is a profound connection between animals and the unseen world, a connection that both fascinates and unsettles me. Story number 13. My dog is scared of something on the next street. I've always been fascinated by the heightened senses of animals compared to humans. Their ability to perceive smells and sounds far beyond our reach is well known. But I often wonder, could their sensory capabilities extend even further into the realm of the paranormal? Every day, my wife and I take our dog on 2 walks, one in the morning and another in the evening. We reside in the heart of a bustling neighborhood surrounded by streets on all sides. During our evening strolls, as dusk slowly transitions into night, something peculiar happens. Our beloved canine companion sometimes becomes visibly agitated, despite the absence of any apparent threat. Normally, she's a friendly and sociable dog, showing interest in other dogs as she encounters or simply observing the neighborhood cats. Barking is a rarity for her, except in one particular circumstance, when she comes across men wearing hoodies. But her aversion to the street directly in front of her house is the most perplexing of all. No matter how much we encourage her, she steadfastly refuses to venture out into the street. Whenever we attempt to lead her in that direction, she whimpers and cries and pulls away as if in distress. Of course, we would never force her to confront her fear. In fact, the first time we noticed her unease, she pulled back so forcefully that she slipped out of her collar and sprinted back to the safety of her own street. A few weeks ago, while engrossed in responding to work emails on my phone, I absent-mindedly wandered down the opposite side of our block, heading toward the street that unnerves our dog. And there it was again, her sudden halt, a clear indication that she would not go any further. It was evident that the source of her apprehension wasn't limited to a specific corner or intersection. She knew to avoid that path from both sides. On several other occasions when we returned home late, I opted to take an alternate route, avoiding the problematic street altogether. Yet even then, a perplexing encounter unfolded. We turned down a different street, and as we walked, my loyal companion abruptly stopped and fixed her gaze upon a seemingly ordinary brick wall. She exhibited signs of fear, cowering her head as if in the presence of the unseen threat. Intrigued and concerned, I switched on my flashlight, hoping to uncover the cause. To my dismay, all that greeted us was a sight of plain brick walls, devoid of any living creatures or hidden dangers. These incidents have left a myriad of questions swirling in my mind. Is there something my dog senses that eludes my own perceptions? Could there be a supernatural presence lurking within the vicinity of our home? Or perhaps there's a deeper, more enigmatic explanation for the uncanny reactions. I find myself yearning for answers, eager to unravel the mysteries that unfold during our walks. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. There is a profound connection between animals and the unseen world, a connection that both fascinates and unsettles me. Story number 14. I have a plan. Any additional advice to expel a demon in my house? Throughout my life, I've encountered countless paranormal entities, ghosts, shadow people, and various other beings that exist beyond our understanding. While some of these encounters have been frightening, none have ever felt as menacing as the current situation I find myself in. The moment I first came face to face with this demonic presence inside my trailer, a wave of fear washed over me. It's a chilling realization that I was dealing with something truly dangerous, something exceptionally bad. In fact, I can confidently say that this is the most malevolent and terrifying paranormal entity I've ever encountered in my entire life, and I'm desperate to rid myself of its presence. To give you some context, I went through a very dark period in my life toward the end of November. The weight of my struggles became so overwhelming that I attempted to take my own life. Fortunately, I survived and spent some time recovering in the hospital. After my release, I sought refuge with my mother for a couple of weeks to regain my strength and find solace. However, when I finally returned to my trailer, that's when all of this turmoil began. I suspect that the extreme negative energy I emitted during that traumatic time, as well as the act itself, somehow acted as an invitation for this demonic entity to enter my life. Interestingly enough, it's not followed me to my mother's house. Although I am still on edge here, my fear mainly revolves around the potential of encountering the presence rather than actually experiencing its manifestations. It seems that it confines itself to my trailer, and that's where the sinister entity lingers, unable or unwilling to venture beyond those boundaries. I visited my trailer today, and the moment I stepped inside, an unnerving sensation overwhelmed me. It was abundantly clear that a disturbing presence still resides within those walls. I've pondered over the strange occurrences that have unfolded, but I won't delve into the specifics in this post. Instead, I reach out to you all for help in finding a way to banish this malevolent force from my life. If any of you are interested in hearing the detailed account of what I've endured, I can provide additional information either through an edit to this post or in a comment. However, the primary purpose of this plea is to seek guidance on how to expel this demonic entity that seized control over my existence. Tomorrow morning, I will muster up the courage to move back into my trailer. The nervousness that courses through my veins is almost paralyzing. Thankfully, I have some trusted friends who possess an affinity for the occult. I have confided in them about the torment that I'm enduring, and they have kindly offered to assist me in developing a plan to rid myself of this wicked presence. Our strategy includes sprinkling salt at every entrance, windows, and the door, creating a barrier to repel the entity. Additionally, we intend to open the windows and perform a sage cleansing throughout the interior of the trailer. I am uncertain if it would be beneficial to include the exterior of this cleansing ritual. Perhaps you could offer some insight on the matter. Moreover, we plan to draw multiple witches' knots and hang them above every window and door, imbuing the space with a protective energy. To further combat this malevolence, my friends will join me on a Friday night. Today is Wednesday, and I'll be returning home on Thursday. During their visit, we will construct a powerful talisman known as a witch's bottle and carefully place it in the appropriate location on the property. The bottle is believed to have the ability to capture and contain negative energies, thus further purifying the environment. In an effort to bring myself some semblance of comfort, I have decided to keep all the lights in my trailer turned on throughout each night. Although this measure has not proven effective in expelling the presence thus far, it does provide me with a sense of security amidst this terrifying ordeal. In the event that the situation becomes overwhelmingly unbearable, I have been granted access to my friend's house where I can seek refuge and spend the night. However, my ultimate desire is to reclaim my own home. I refuse to live in perpetual fear and allow this malevolent force to dictate my life any longer. Running away is not a viable solution. I'm determined to face this head on. If any of you possess additional insights or suggestions, I implore you share them with me. I am prepared to do whatever it takes to rid myself of this presence once and for all. If my current efforts prove to be insufficient, then I will know that it's time to summon the big guns, so to speak. Perhaps it will be necessary to involve a priest or seek assistance from other spiritual practitioners who specialize in exorcisms. At this point, I'm open to any and all possibilities, willing to explore every avenue until my home is restored to its former tranquility. The sense of unsafety that engulfs me is indescribable. I feel physically threatened by this demonic presence that's invaded my sanctuary. Nevertheless, my determination remains unyielding. I long to reclaim my peaceful house. I'm willing to take any additional steps that might be suggested. I will leave no stone unturned in my quest to eradicate this insidious force from my life. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to regain control and exorcise this malevolence from my existence completely. Your guidance, assistance, and support are all greatly appreciated during this challenging time. Together, we can strive to restore peace and harmony to my once beloved home.